Hello, everyone. No problem. Hope you're all ready for today's case. We're really excited for it. I'll just start with giving you a brief agenda of what will happen today, especially for the students. I'll be introducing you to today's presenters. They will be speaking to you till 11 a.m., after which you'll have a 45-minute Q&A period. It will take place right after the presentation. It will be done by a random draw. You might want to take notes during the Q&A and during the presentations, as there are no slides that will be provided to you afterwards. When you want to ask questions, we go by the random draw, so if you want to pass, that is completely up to you. Then wave 1 will go to prepare right at 12:05. Wave 2 will go to preparation at 1 p.m. Teams, you will have 2 hours to prepare this case, so not 3 hours that you usually take. You would be advised that wave 2 should not be allowed to speak about the case, consult your notes, or read the background materials while you're waiting for wave 1 to finish. You are please asked to speak only in English and in French to each other. Everyone, at the end of this presentation, please remain seated and wait for our signals. We will be signaling for wave 1 to go out first. After that, the judges will leave, and then the public will be escorted out of the room. Without further ado, let me introduce you to the presenters of today's case. The founder and CEO of Loofah Farms, Mohammed Haj. The Chief of Staff and Corporate Development Managers, James Rathmell. And joining us live is Lauren Rathmell, Greenhouse Director and founding member. Thank you. Okay.
Hi everyone, bonjour tout le monde. So I'm Mohammed, and this is James, and Lauren's joining us live. And we're really truly honored to be here today amongst some of the best MBA students in the world. So we're really excited. We run a small startup in Montreal called Loofah Farms. We'll be telling you a little bit about what we do. I think by now you've had a chance to read a little bit about the company, and you're probably wondering, what? Are they really truly farming? And the answer is yes. So I'll be telling you a little bit about how we came to be, how Loofah came to be, a bit about the history of the company. Then I'm going to switch the floor to Lauren, who is actually in one of our farms right now. And she's listening in to this conversation. I don't know if we can hear her. Lauren, are you live?
I'm here.
Let me just see here.
Okay.
A second. So I think we might have a small problem connecting Lauren. So if we can't get a hold of Lauren, I'll give you a virtual tour of the farm. I'll try and describe it the best way possible. If not, we'll try and reach her over Hangout. So really quickly, a little bit about Loofah, how we started. The company, so we grow food on rooftops, and we distribute our food directly to consumers. It's a new concept. It's a new idea. It started about 9 years ago. Sorry. All right. It started about 9 years ago, and it's something that really germinated from an idea. I ran a software company before starting this business, and I had a big passion for agriculture and a big passion for technology. I grew up in Lebanon in a family of farms, and I grew up really understanding the challenges of farming, and I wanted to find ways where technology could really truly affect farming. So about 6 years ago is when we truly decided we will do this. Lauren at the time was a fresh graduate from McGill University in biochemistry. She took on the challenge of learning how to grow food sustainably. I had a partner who was a general contractor, who was innovative, who understood that this would be a new technical challenge in terms of construction. And I had a consultant friend of mine who was a whiz in marketing and consumer affairs, and he knew how to help us reach the consumers. What's really interesting about Loofah is all of us, the team, when we started the company, we had never grown a tomato in our entire life, and we had never sold a tomato in our entire life. So we really were incredibly ambitious. People laughed at us when we started, but we knew that we were consumers, we were technologists, and we were problem solvers, and that's all we needed to be able to take a fresh look at fresh food. So in 2011, we built the world's first commercial rooftop greenhouse. It's this 31,000 square foot farm on top of an industrial building. We're growing tomatoes, cucumbers, peppers, lettuce, herbs, a little bit of everything actually in that farm. We're growing in a very innovative way. I'll do want to give this a shot, one more time, to see if we can get Lauren to explain it to you and show you around. And what we did when we started the project is we decided to sell our food directly to consumers. The reason why we did that is because we said to ourselves, if we were going to grow food, that's amazing. If we're going to go through all the trouble of putting it in the city and understanding how to grow it in a sustainable way, we can't sell it through the traditional channels. The food won't remain amazing as it makes it to consumers. We didn't want our food to sit on the shelves of grocery stores. So we became an accidental B2C company because we wanted to go straight to the consumer. We wanted to sell our food directly to consumers. We, inspired by the CSA basket program that's available, we decided to start selling our food directly to consumers, to drop-off points all around the city. And in not too long, we truly fell in love with this model. We realized that having this direct connection to the consumer had a lot of benefits. Yes, it was a more complicated business. As you'll see in this presentation, it's a very vertically integrated business. We do a lot, but we fell in love with it. And today, we call it the local food engine. So in Montreal, we have one engine that's up and running. It's an engine that's feeding a large number of people. And it's something that allows us to have our food harvested the same day that it's delivered to our consumers. So I'd like to start by walking you through what we do in terms of farming, the challenges and the opportunities we have in farming. And I'm going to try and give this one more try and see if we can connect Lauren via camera here. So let me hit the reconnect button here and see what happens.
Hello? Hello?
God. All right, we'll give this maybe another 10 seconds. Let me just try it first. We expected some technical challenges.
Hello?
A user? Yeah, actually, that's a good question. Well, does anyone really know about Loofah Farms? Has anyone heard about what we do? All right, a few. Any Loofah Farms subscribers? Okay. Now I understand why you want me to ask that question. All right. So I think unfortunately, we won't be able to walk you through the actual presentation of the greenhouse. It's a bit of a shame. It's a great place. It's great to see the visual. I think when we connected earlier on, it looked as if Lauren was sitting in Mexico. It was sunny, it was bright. She was surrounded with green veggies, so we figured it's a good contrast. But I'll walk you through our principles of farming. So when we started the company, we actually rented greenhouses at McGill University for 2 years. And Lauren, who was a fresh graduate in biochemistry, took on the challenge of developing what we call sustainable farming, which starts off by using no pesticides, herbicides, and fungicides. So we knew that we had to farm safe food. We had to come up with a way of introducing biological insects into the farm and creating an equilibrium between the good and the bad insects to get to the point where we reproduce what Mother Nature does naturally, and we don't need to use any pesticides in our farming. We also needed to develop a way to grow many kinds of vegetables in the same greenhouse. So we're growing, I think today we're growing over 40 different varieties in each one of our farms. So we have a lot of variety growing at the same time, and that's quite complex because you have to cater to all the needs of different plants. We had to also grow food using less energy. So we developed a software program that actually allows us to manage the farms remotely and allows us to check on the energy consumption of each farm and optimize it. So we have insect screens at night that we can deploy to conserve the heat. In the morning, we open them up when the sunlight comes. And it's all driven fairly automatically by a software program. Software is very prevalent at Lufa. We use it practically everywhere. Even the way we manage insects in the farm is done via software. So we actually have an iPad application that we developed that allows us to walk into the farm and inventory all the insects that we have, the good and the bad. And then we have this one dashboard that tells us if we are truly reproducing what Mother Nature intended. So if we have an equilibrium between the good and the bad insects. And when we don't, what we do is we introduce insects into the farm in areas where we need them to allow us to establish that equilibrium. We also run one of the only farms in Canada that actually recirculates its water at 100%. So we capture rainwater, snowmelt, condensation, we store it, we use it for irrigation, and all the excess of the irrigation we take back, we filter, and we reuse permanently. So it's a closed-loop irrigation system. And all this is fairly new, was fairly new to us. We had to develop, we have to spend quite a bit of efforts and money actually in R&D to develop these tools. Today we find ourselves running the greenhouses with a plant science team and an operations team, where the operations team manage the day-to-day harvest, plant maintenance, upkeep of the greenhouse. And we have the plant science team that are looking after the water, the plant physiology, the insects, and looking at ways of optimizing yields, finding the best varieties that we can grow, and looking at how else can we improve our farming. And that's what we call sustainable farming. It's a full package that we apply in every single farm that we build. So what's also unique about our farm is we harvest every morning. Because we have a direct link to consumers, our harvest team comes in, I think, close to 10, 11 p.m. at night, and they will harvest exactly the vegetables that we need for the day. So we will harvest everything during the nighttime. We finish harvest around between 3 and 5 a.m. in the morning, and we bring it to our central warehouse where we pack it into consumer boxes, and we bring it out to consumers the same day. So it's incredibly fresh. It's practically a zero-waste system because it allows us to only harvest what we need and use the plants as a big warehouse. So we're not really losing any vegetables, and the fact that we have a direct link with the consumer allows us to do two things. First, grow vegetables and grow varieties that you can't find in the grocery stores, things like heirloom tomatoes. I think we have this one variety of tomato called Indigo Rose, and it's a chocolate-colored tomato. It's a tomato that was bred by 2 universities to make the most full of antioxidant tomato. So we grow varieties that you can't find in the store. And the second thing is we have no waste, because even tomatoes that are not necessarily pretty or not necessarily to size, we still sell to our consumers. And our consumers understand that this is what farm products look like. And that's important because in the typical standard farming systems, you have up to 30% of product that's not marketable or that's end up being lost or thrown out. So how does our service work? So as in our engine, customers sign up to Lufa. So you become a member of our farm. And as a member of our farm, you log online once a week where we have proposed an offering of vegetables that come from our farm and farms all around Quebec. And you have 3 days to actually customize your offering. So you have till midnight the day of your delivery to choose what products you want to receive. And when we started Lufa, we had our veggies, about 50, 60 different varieties. And we had potatoes coming from a ground-based farm in Quebec, organic potatoes, carrots, beets, and slowly that offer expanded to the point where today about 30% of our sales come from things we grow, and 70% of our sales come from things that we source. And we source a little bit of everything that you'd find in a farmer's market. So we have all the root vegetables, it's all organic local, we have fruit, we've got even bread. So we have bakers that are in the area that actually will bake bread after midnight, after the orders have been finalized. And the bread will arrive every morning to our warehouse still warm, so we pack it incredibly warm. We have organic milk, organic cheese, and now we even have organic meats on the marketplace. So the idea is to not only sell what we grow, but also complement it by things that we call them treasures, that are found all around us. Now that's important for us because we can't grow everything, and it's important for us because we can't go to the consumer with an incomplete offering, which is really why we started doing polyculture in the first place. We couldn't just do a tomato basket. So this is really a little bit of how the company has evolved. You know, we started from growing our own food to growing and gathering. And today we have, I think, close to about 300 different products at any given time on the marketplace. And everything is as fresh as it can be. We even offer juices that are squeezed at 6 a.m. in the morning, and they come to our warehouse at 8 a.m. in the morning, and they're packed in the boxes instantly. And in terms of schedules, we're a bit of an odd company. We start harvest at night. We open our warehouse at 3 a.m. in the morning. And at 3 a.m. in the morning, 75% of what we need to put in the box is not even there. It's being harvested, baked, squeezed, made, cut, and it starts arriving between 3 a.m. and 10 a.m. in the morning. At 10 a.m., we close up everything. We close all the boxes. We put them on pallets, and we take them through our trucks to drop-off points all over Montreal. So we don't deliver to homes. And that's key because home delivery is inefficient, it's challenging, and it's not sustainable. So we deliver in bulk to pickup points and pickup locations. And in a city like Montreal, we today have over 200 pickup locations scattered all over the city. So our consumers have to travel no more than 300 to 400 meters to be able to get to a pickup location. And at the pickup location, they arrive. There's a stack of boxes waiting for them. They find the box that has their name. They take the contents of the box out, and they leave the box behind, and we reuse the box. And once a week, we drop off at these locations. So we have drop-offs on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, and Friday, but there are different locations every day of the week. It's a fairly new/odd model for distribution, but we favor it over home delivery because it's scalable, and it allows us to do it in a very efficient way. I think today we only have 3 trucks that handle the deliveries for all of our consumers. So again, this is what we call the local food engine. It's one part growing food sustainably on rooftops in the heart of cities where you're able to hire people locally, where you're able to improve the energy efficiency of the building because you're insulating the building. You're able to grow food with less heating energy because you're getting a lot of that energy from the building below. And one part gathering where we're partnering up with bakers, makers, and farmers that are like-minded, that share our vision, and bringing all this amazing offer via the miracle of e-commerce to our consumers the same day it's harvested. Loofah today is a team of about 70 people, and I think about 30 people are focused on really improving our formula. So we have our own developers, we have our own logistics teams. We developed an ERP that allows us to manage our food from seed to plate. So it's one big platform that allows us to go manage what's being grown in the greenhouse, seed grow, seed harvested, packed in boxes all the way to consumers. And we're able to track everything from tablets that we have developed. If you walk into our pick and pack where we are assembling the boxes, what you'll see are people walking in with tablets, and the tablets were loaded at midnight automatically, and they tell our, apologies for this, they tell our packing team what to pack in each box. So it's an automatic system, it's paperless, and it allows us to execute on the fly what we need for the day. So we started from wanting to be a technology farming company to having stumbled on a B2C company. You know, we called it the local food engine. We're happy with how it's going. I think when we first launched Loofah, the first week we were feeding 400 people, and we were ecstatic, you know, and we scrambled to make it on time. We did a lot of mistakes, and today we're feeding over 10,000 people in Montreal. So we have 5,000 subscribers that are receiving a weekly basket, and 200 drop-off points, and we feel that that's really just the start. We feel that we can grow Montreal quite a bit, and financially it performs well. Customers are happy. We like it. We think that it's doing farming a lot of good, and it's doing the local community a lot of good by collecting these partnerships. So the key thing about Loofah as well that really makes me really proud is the fact that it addresses our broken food system. I like to always say that food has been hacked for ages. You know, back in the days, we used to harvest a head of lettuce and eat it the same day. And then we realized if we put it in a bag and refrigerate it, it could store longer. And then we realized that if we changed the temperature, shocked it, gave it some ethylene, we could get it to ripen, we could get it to change its parameters. And today, most of what we're eating has traveled hundreds of miles, is far from fresh, really goes bad within days at our house. And it's hacking. We've been getting better and better at hacking food, but we've been hitting rock walls. And we need to come back to a point where we treat food as something that's fresh, something that spoils really quickly, and something that needs to be eaten for its flavors and for its vitamins. So what really makes me proud is we have this potential at Loofah of addressing a broken food system. So now that we look at Montreal and we're happy with how things are going in Montreal, we're looking to expand. The goal at Loofah is to grow the company reach 100 million in sales in the next 5 years, and to replicate loofah outside of Montreal. And I think this is really the very important piece of information for you. This is the challenge. This is what we are asking you here today to solve. What should our 5-year expansion plan look like to achieve 100 million in revenues? And what is the best expansion strategy to give us a strong foothold in North American markets? So this is what we're asking you today to address. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask James to walk you through the specifics of loofah, so getting into the numbers, getting into the challenges in detail so you understand the limitations and what could be preventing us from achieving our objectives. And I think after this we've got a 45-minute Q&A. So I'll turn it to James, who's been with loofah for I think about 2.5 years now, and he'll walk you through the next part of the presentation.
Sorry, just got some text from Lauren. Morning, everybody. Great. So like Mo said, I'm basically going to walk you kind of through the nitty-gritty of what this looks like. So we are very much interested in expanding. This is something we've invested a lot in kind of the future of the company and developing out software and developing out really the hardware, the technology, the platform of the greenhouse. And we wouldn't have done that if we didn't think in the next 5 years we would be looking towards future expansion and really replicating our model in multiple North American cities. And really, it does kind of take into account the whole package. We think the direct-to-consumer model, the e-commerce platform, the basically food aggregation of treasures, of local treasures from organic farmers, in addition to the rooftop greenhouses. We think this entire package, it all works so well together, and really all of those components are necessary to make it work. So when it comes to background information, important background information for you, so when you talk about challenges, there are really kind of 3 important things to know about the whole local food engine and implementing it in new cities. So first off, there are significant legal challenges. In your handouts, you read background on Article 89. So Article 89 is an initiative by the city of Boston. They've recently revised all of their zoning code to allow for rooftop agriculture. The reason it was included in your packets is that this is something that's insanely unique, not in just Canada, not in just the U.S., but really worldwide. Urban agriculture is still something. I mean, we've had meetings where we walk into a room and people are like, "What's this about putting cows on my roof?" You know, that's really the perspective that people take on it. And so there are a lot of legal challenges that are still involved in making this work. Zoning codes, certainly. Building codes, there are kind of a number of structural challenges, a number of fire protection challenges, a number of plumbing challenges that go into this. Implementing this even just on a single rooftop in a new city. And then simultaneously, there are also taxation issues. And that plays into the profitability of the model, is that if you are a farm and you're being taxed like an Apple store, but you're actually selling apples, that's a problem. So really, when we look at expanding a new city, one of the first points of contact that we have is with local development agencies. Who can help us work through a lot of these challenges, work on getting zoning variances, or in the case of Boston, they really took a forward-looking approach and revised them with input from a number of people in the industry, but really working through those issues. This is kind of a multi-year challenge as we look towards expanding to new cities, and it's definitely something to keep in mind. From a financial perspective, in your handouts, you also saw just kind of a hypothetical scenario. The thing I would really want to highlight there, in addition, I mentioned the taxation issue, but in addition to that is that this, unlike a software company or kind of similar companies like that, is that there is a very high capital expenditure up front for this sort of project. The rooftop greenhouse is an integral component of the model. It really kind of acts as a billboard. It acts as a supply for about 30% of the produce that comes from the greenhouse. And we don't think that the local food engine works without the rooftop greenhouse. But that also means that there is a multi-million dollar capital expenditure up front to get this thing up and running. And that does play into the cost of capital. And then finally, there's a technical challenge. So in addition to complying with all of the kind of building codes, zoning regulations, all of that, the technical challenge is really just the complexity of the model. When you look at building a rooftop greenhouse in a new city, there's a team of about seven different specialists that have to get involved, in addition to other people that are consultants that you would have to bring in from the outside. You have to get your technology providers involved. We work with a Dutch greenhouse manufacturer, and we coordinate with their team, their engineers, their CEO, their CFO, to make sure that all of that works out. You also have the interior components of the greenhouse. So you have lighting systems, you have hydroponic systems, you have control technology, so climate control technology, all of that. You have fire engineers who kind of have to figure out how to make sure that this, what might be considered an occupiable safe is in compliance with local regulations. You have structural engineers to make sure that the building doesn't collapse when you put this rooftop greenhouse on the top of it. You have the plant scientists who are going to decide what to grow. You have the marketers who are going to talk to plant scientists and try to figure out what fits best with the local market, what sort of polyculture environment you're going to need. You have the finance guys. Really, all of this, by way of saying, is that it's an immense technical challenge. And then on top of that, when we're looking to expand in new cities, there's also kind of a local market component. Luckily, we know the Montreal market really quite well. And especially over the past 4 years, as we've been developing out the local food engine here, we've just become very embedded. We know, who the players are. We have a really good understanding of the market and consumer needs. And that's not necessarily the case if we decided to go to Austin, say. We would really be starting from square one. And so the complexity of expanding is not only the technical challenge, but also the kind of local market knowledge challenge. That said, there also is a huge opportunity that comes with the local food engine. So the two key pieces here are that with the rooftop greenhouse component, with all of the aggregation, with in-house logistics, and the ERP that we've developed, we do have full vertical integration, which brings a lot of efficiencies, and it brings a lot of kind of market benefits. And we do really think it's a comprehensive solution to a lot of challenges that Mo was mentioning. And then simultaneously, it's also addressing some of kind of the fastest growing market segments in the food world. You can see right here, so these are kind of how this market segments break down. All of the markets except for conventional grocery are really, really small, but then they're growing at a rapidly increasing rate. Conventional actually outpaced inflation by 0.08% in 2012. So there's definitely things are very much shifting in the fresh, local, responsible direction, but also the grocery e-commerce direction. I mean, you went through the handouts, so I'm not going to get into there. The really key takeaways that I want you to kind of focus on as you prepare your cases are there's, number one, there's a very high return on investment for this sort of project compared with other types of urban agriculture, say B2B urban agriculture, but also other types of food distribution. So if I was deciding whether to set up a new Loblaws or Shaw's or whatever your local grocery store chain is, or if I was deciding to do a local food engine, the high ROI definitely plays into it. But then simultaneously, on the flip side, the high capital expenditure of putting a farm on a rooftop is also a key takeaway. So I'm going to let Mo kind of finish everything up here, just kind of talk about why we even want to expand. Why are we positing this challenge to you guys?
So I think it's important for, as we ask you to help us figure out the best plan to reach 100 million in sales in the next 5 years, and come up with the best expansion strategy for our business to really explain to you why we want to expand. I mean, people ask us all the time, why not stay in Montreal, grow your business in Montreal? Why look at other cities? There's really a number of reasons to do it. I think, first of all, at heart, our vision has always been to be system developers, not operators. I think we're operating the Montreal business today mostly because we need to show that it works. But at heart, we're technologists, we're geeks, and we want to be doing what we do best. Second of all, we think the global opportunity is too big for us to be doing this only in Montreal. We feel as if we stumbled upon a solution for our food problems, something that addresses all the major elements that are facing humanity. I mean, we're going from 7 billion to 9 billion. We have less land, we have less water, less resources. People are demanding better and safer food. Loofah addresses all this. And we think it's an opportunity that's really that's enormous, and we don't want to be missing on it. Even though we're a small team, we want to be seeing this happen globally. And finally, we feel as if that this helps us address the food systems and create the supermarket 2.0, where before we were going out to these mega locations, single story, occupying a lot of space, walking around in the aisles, holding and touching veggies that are, weeks and months old sometimes, and hoping, where the retailers hoping that we would buy them. We believe that this model is a lot better. It's a just-in-time model where we are growing, we are harvesting, we are making as you are placing your order. It's also something that's more flexible, bringing the entire shopping experience very close to where you work, and in a lot of occasions actually work to your own workplace. So we think the opportunity is enormous. We truly think this is a transformational company. We look at it as a multi-generational project, and this is why we are trying to expand. Good. And
You want to try to connect more?
yeah, I think what I'll try and do, actually for the Q&A session, maybe if we switch to your laptop, we'll try and connect Lauren. I think we'll give it one last shot and see, as we're doing the Q&A, we'll see if we can give you guys a snapshot of the farm. Good. Yeah, we'll try it on this computer, and I think it's exactly.
Okay, great. Yeah.
No, it's all right. It was just, I think she lost connection or something. So I'm just going to load it up here.
Do you have the session available? Okay.
Hey, Al.
So it works. Okay.
Yeah, I think she just cut out before.
Yep. Very good.
I'm 3 and she's 2. We have the stage one.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So someone has to stay here and
I'll hang out.
perfect, and then iterate the questions to her.
Yep.
Perfect. And you can hear us okay, right? Perfect. We can't. We will hear you in a second once you're on the projector. Actually, do you see the projectors behind me? The slides. Sure.
I think that would be
That's a
great.
good call. Perfect. So hey, you might want to, if we get this up and running, you might want to just say a couple of words. Just say hi to everybody, and then we'll do Q&A, and you'll join us for Q&A. I can't hear you, so it's great. I like this arrangement a lot. So you wanna be here?
Yeah, we're all
So are you guys going to go
Thanks
back
very
and
much.
forth to the microphone? He's going to stay there? Okay, so,
Yeah, you can share the mic.
okay. Are we waiting for anything? Or
I think they're waiting for the. No, I think we can start.
are we going to be able to see her or just
Yeah,
to hear
he's
her?
gonna flip the switch now.
Okay. Good morning, everybody. Sorry to interrupt all the students working very hard. Welcome to The World Has Talent. What we're going to do now is we're going to do the Q&A session. So I'm going to pull the names out of the hat here. It's all random. And I'll call your school name. Once I call your school name, I ask that one person at your table please stand up so we can get a microphone to your table. You can either ask one question, that's one, or you can pass. But I still need you to stand up, please, just so that we know where you are and we can hear you clearly say pass, and then we're going to go on to the next team. There are no follow-up questions allowed, although I'm sure some will try. Are we ready? St. Mary's University.
Yep. Sorry, we got the.
That's not me.
Lauren, can you say hi?
Yeah, is the audio working?
Yep, it's working great.
Yeah, greenhouse.
Yeah.
Got it.
Cool. Great. So yeah, if you have any questions for Lauren as well, I can relay them here. Oh, sure. All right, great. So Lauren, if you just want to say a few words about just loofah and all of that, that'd be great.
This is what our greenhouse looks like. We grow cucumbers and peppers here. Yeah, I don't know. I'm the greenhouse worker here. I'm the farmer, so I can't see you, but nice to meet you.
And what was the kind of vision for loofah? Mo said a few words at the end about why we're looking to expand, but what's kind of, from in your own words, what's the whole vision behind why we want to go into multiple cities?
Yeah, I mean, we want to grow food closer to where people live and grow it more sustainably. This is a model that's applicable in cities worldwide, and it's definitely one of the solutions to feeding the global population, the global urban population, which is growing at an increasing rate. So I think that it's the right formula, and now we've got to get the business part down to make it scalable internationally.
Great.
Thank you. We just had looking for some clarification on your output per square foot, the potential. So not sure which kind of metric you use for production. But can you give us an idea of yield potential per square foot, like in the 31,000 square foot space? Like what's your potential, and what in terms of pounds or whatever units you're using? Thank you.
Lauren, could you, in terms of square foot? Yeah.
Output, I mean, it depends on the crop, but typically, I guess one of the higher yielding crops will be cucumber, and we can achieve at least 50 kilos per square meter from a crop like that. It's comparable for tomatoes and things like that. So that gives you kind of an idea. 50 to 100 kilos per square meter are really good, but average is around 50. Is that Carrie?
Yep. Yeah. So I'll just repeat that. It's 50 to 100 kilograms per square meter.
Aalto University School of Business. If you can stand up when I call your name and jump up and down a little bit too.
So we received your numbers for last year, but what is your revenue for 2014, not 2013?
So we're hitting a $10 million run rate, and the 2013 numbers were kind of a little bit masked. We kind of played around with the scale of the numbers and everything. So those aren't our actuals, just so that you're aware of that. But right now we're achieving actually a higher than $10 million run rate.
Thanks.
HEC Montreal.
We'll pass.
That's entertainment. York University.
Hi. You mentioned that you source some of your products, such as milk and bread, from other local producers. I was just wondering if you have multiple options for each product, or if you sort of stick to one main producer.
So if we were going to sell potatoes, as an example, we typically would find the best partner that grows potatoes, the varieties that we need, and we would usually not provide the same options that you'd find in a normal grocery store. I think one of the bigger challenges is if we provided a lot of SKUs or competing SKUs, the volume per SKU will drop to the point where it might not justify the daily harvest, the daily making. So we tend to stick to only one, maximum two suppliers per SKU or per product.
McMaster University.
Thank you so much for coming in today. We were wondering who your target customer is and what tactics you're currently used to reach them.
So we always we surveyed our customers, and I think about 80% of our customer base is female. Usually we look at our perfect customer as someone that has 1 to 2 kids, a young family, someone that's very well educated. The income levels tend to be on the higher side, not something we're proud of, but that the reality is they tend to be on the higher side of things. And they're divided into two groups. The group that's really interested in sustainability, a lot of architects, a lot of engineers, a lot of sustainability advocates. And we have the folks that are interested in food, a lot of foodies, a lot of chefs, a lot of people that cook more than the usual. And these tend to be the two markets that we service the most. Was there a second part to that question? Nope. No, I think we got it.
University of Calgary.
Good morning. What are some specifics about how you're addressing the energy needs for your greenhouses? Like some of the specific initiatives, and what are the impacts?
Sure. So there was a question about energy needs for the greenhouses, how we're addressing energy needs for the greenhouses. Yeah. Sorry, I think the audio cut out just for a second, but go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, in terms of conserving energy, Mo might have mentioned a few of the steps that we've taken, but we have energy screens, which you can't really see right now, but they're above me, that help us conserve heat at night, so it reduces heat loss at night and traps any heat gain during the day. We're also, by being on a rooftop, we're already using about half the energy of a typical ground level greenhouse, just because we're always on a 20-something degree surface rather than 4 degrees in winter. And then we're closely looking at it in terms of a IP perspective. So we've started working on a patent that would help us also look at all the different systems and how to use them in a more harmonious way to further save energy. I don't know if that answers the question, but.
Yep.
Okay.
University of Ottawa.
Hi. We'd just like to thank you for the presentation today, and we'd like to pass. So, thank you.
Nanyang Business School.
Hi, good morning. I understand that you've gone through quite a bit of legal process with the City of Montreal in order to get the legislation and the permits in order to operate in terms of zoning and in terms of the change of use in terms of your operations in the land that you have. So can you share with us how long did this process take and what did you actually do to get this permit?
Sure. So in Montreal, we had to go to the urbanism officials in our borough, and we had to do a code analysis between the codes of the city and where we digress. And we ended up summarizing the delta in a document that became the basics of our application for what's called a projet particulier, or a special project, special permit. And that special permit was presented to the city. The city had to approve it internally. Then it went to 2 public consultations where the members of the public could ask questions, could share any concerns that they had. And following that, we received the official approval to be able to apply for permitting. So overall, it took about a year. And what we found was that the city was quite open, quite supporting. But obviously, the process is long, and you have to follow the process. And what's interesting was if we went to another city, when we built our second farm in Laval, which is a neighbor to Montreal, we found that we had to repeat the exact same process, and we had to educate the officials there the exact same way we had to do with Montreal. So really, the experience in Montreal did not carry over very much to the experience in Laval, and we expect the same in other cities. I think we have a little bit of experience with other cities, and we've seen the same type of requirements. So we figure between a year to a year and a half to simply get the full official sign-off of a city.
University of Chicago.
Hi, thank you for being here. We'd like to know, can you provide us the margin breakdowns for the products that are produced in the greenhouse versus those that are sourced externally?
Sure, good question. So for things that we grow, we're typically running anywhere from 40 to 50% margin. Some things that we grow have a much higher margin, things like lettuces and greens, and some things have a lower margin like tomatoes. And things that we source, we typically aim for similar margins, to anywhere from 40 to 50% margin on retail. What's interesting is, as we are growing, we're now moving towards partnerships with our farms, where the margins would improve by buying larger and larger quantities. I think this summer we expect to have a 25-acre parcel of land that will be dedicated to producing root vegetables for loofah. And that's a way for us to bring significant more business to the farm. We take on the full marketing risk, but we benefit from really excellent margins, well above the margins that we are receiving right now. So, and when you compare it to the retail industry, to the food retail industry, well, we're displacing the retail margins, but also the distribution margin because we're sourcing directly from the makers.
Can you hear me? Queensland University.
Would you be able to comment on your subscription process and fees?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
Would you be able to comment on your subscription process and fees?
The subscription prices.
Subscription process for your e-commerce platform for when customers sign up to have the products delivered?
Sure.
The process of signing up.
Oh, sure.
And fees as well. Sure.
Well, I'll let you take it then.
So fees, there are no fees. We started out with a 12-week CSA program. That was about the first year and a half. In March 2013, we launched what is now the marketplace, which is a fully fledged e-commerce platform. Essentially what happens is that people sign up. They say, I want a weekly basket delivered on Tuesday to Starbucks. And then what happens is about 72 hours in advance of that, they receive an email that says your marketplace is now open, your basket is ready for customization. If they do not do anything, we will deliver a base basket of local seasonal vegetables in a value of about $30. And if they do log on, they can customize. And the minimum is $15 for a delivery, no delivery fees or anything like that. And they can customize just basically grocery shopping with a $15 minimum order.
University of Florida.
Hello, thank you for your presentation. We'd like to know, what are your current methods of raising capital?
So when we first launched the project, I think no one wanted to touch it with a 10-foot pole. So it was a lot of family money, a lot of love money. The founders really chipped in to get the first greenhouse up and running. I think it was a $2.5 million investment. When we got the first greenhouse up and running, we became a little bit interesting for investors that had sustainability in mind. And we raised Series A, I think it's in 2013? No,
It closed in early 2013.
Yeah, in early 2013. And that really allowed us to get the funds needed to build our second farm. Today, we're at a point where we're talking to banks and trying to get banks on board using traditional loans as a way of financing the expansion.
Düsseldorf University.
Well, first of all, thank you for the presentation. We were wondering what the most important pros and cons for maybe an expansion to Africa would be in your mind.
Sure. When we look at where this model really could do best, we always tend to favor areas that are food deserts. I think Montreal is a great example. A lot of what we eat today in Montreal is brought in from far away. I think if we went to Florida or California and said eat local, I think it would be a little tougher because there's a lot of things that are produced locally. So we tend to favor areas that are not growing their own food. But geographically speaking, it would apply a little bit everywhere. Winter or cold climates tend to give us the benefit of using the heat from the building and insulating the building. So that's a side advantage that we can get. A fairly significant side advantage. I mean, in Montreal, we're using about half the energy to produce our food than a farm on the ground. But we look at it as a model that's applicable for food deserts globally.
University of Kaiserslautern.
Thank you for your presentation, but we'll pass.
FIA Business School.
Good morning. We would like to go back and ask the potential market size in North America, and if you could open up your market share numbers in Montreal. Thank you.
In Montreal, I think today we're feeding, and James, correct me if I'm wrong, we're feeding just a little bit less than 1% of Montreal. So we feel as if, you know, our model is odd. It's not a retail model. It's something that my mom was not very used to. She's a subscriber now, but it took her a while to get used to it. So we feel that that's a challenge when it comes down to feeding all the entire city today, but we feel as if we could potentially satisfy 10% of a city like Montreal. When we did the research for Boston as an example, we realized that Boston is a bit of a healthier percentage of the city, mostly because people were already in tune with online shopping and comfortable using their tablets and computers to order things online. So if we take Montreal, we feel as if Montreal is probably, you know, reaching 10% would probably be the upper limit for the time being, and over time we think that that's going to get better. And in terms of, and globally, it really will depend on the city. I think we feel as if almost all cities with more than 500,000 people living in them could justify the construction of a food engine, preferably cities with colder climates that are food deserts. And we feel as if the same penetration numbers that we have in Montreal could apply in these cities.
And yeah, just following up kind of on that, when it comes to kind of the comparables, when we do kind of estimates of market size and potential penetration and all of that, we're sitting kind of at the cross section of a number of different industries. So that's why I flashed up that slide about local, e-commerce, organic. I mean, it kind of depends on what bucket you put us in. In terms of online farmers market, that's a farmers markets like Good Eggs or Spud or things like that. That's a tiny, tiny, tiny market. Because it's just a few startups kind of doing it in places and testing things out. If you look at local, that's about $2 billion. If you look at grocery e-commerce, so kind of some of the bigger players like Peapod, if that's kind of who we think we're up against, that's probably a $7 billion market. But all of these markets are really rapidly growing, and conventional is barely outpacing inflation. So there is kind of a shift in that direction, and it's kind of time will tell what the long-term trends on these things are.
Wilfrid Laurier University.
Thanks a lot for your presentation today. I was hoping you could detail for us what or who you perceive as your biggest competitive threat.
I think I mean, we're always look at competitors in terms of really two buckets: the concept, which is the innovation in rooftop farming, and there's very, very few players in that space. I think there's probably maybe one other company in the world that's looking at building farms on rooftops, which is one of the key innovations, if not the key innovation in what we do. But when it comes down to Montreal, we compete with anyone that's selling food. Our biggest competitor tends to be the grocery chains.
National University of Singapore.
A very good morning. First of all, thank you for your presentation. Highly appreciated. The question we have is, in terms of sustainability, the dropout points are very important. We see that. So in terms of sustaining this model throughout North America, which is the farthest distance that you think is sustainable in terms of drop-off points?
I'm just gonna repeat that to make sure I got that right. So you're asking, what's the furthest distance?
Yes, for the drop-off points.
From a consumer? For a consumer? Right. What's interesting is when we launched Lufa, we had, I think, 12 drop-off points in the entire city. So consumers had to travel upwards of 5 kilometers or 3 to 4 kilometers to get to a pickup point, a drop-off point. Today, it's you know, down to about 300 meters. And a lot of our pickup points are in businesses or buildings where people are living or working in that building. The biggest challenges lie in when we launch and we don't yet have enough subscribers to justify the hundreds of pickup points. But once we start rolling and we have those subscribers, We try to maintain a minimum of 30 boxes per drop-off point to make sure that the deliveries are very, very efficient. I don't know if that answers your question. Okay.
Kent State.
Thank you for being here today. Our question is, what are the key criteria that you used in picking the rooftops?
In picking?
The rooftops that you used for the
sure.
greenhouses.
So not all rooftops are suitable for building a farm. When we first started, we looked for a building that was designed to receive additional weights, a bit of a needle in the haystack. We ended up finding that the building, it was the site where we built our first farm. So all buildings that were designed to receive additional loads are suitable for what we are doing today. They tend to be industrial buildings built in the 60s and the 80s and as far back as the 20s. These buildings are great. If not, we look at new construction, so intercepting big warehouse buildings, shopping centers before they are built and designing them to receive the loads needed for an additional building. In parallel to that, we have a small team that's working towards reducing the weight of the greenhouse and reducing the demands on the building below. We actually, I think Lauren mentioned it, we just filed for a patent for a system that allows us to melt the snow on the farm and reduce the weight of the snow, which is really one of the largest weights in Montreal. And that means that we can go on many other buildings that might not necessarily have a very large additional loading capacity. But today, what we need is a building an industrial building. You'll find a lot of them in New England. You find quite a few of them in Chicago, as an example. Big industrial buildings.
University of Manitoba.
Really, really fascinating. Thank you. Could you give us a sense of your pricing model and what the cost is of an average order?
Sure. So the best way to describe it would be we're not as expensive as, our products are not as expensive as organic products found at the farmers markets or at the local grocery stores, but they are more expensive than the conventional non-organic found at the farmers markets and the premium local grocery stores. So, for all the Americans out there, it would sit between Shaw's and Whole Foods, not quite as expensive as Whole Foods, but a bit of a bigger premium over Shaw's. And what's interesting is we're cheaper today than when we were 3 years ago, when we started 3 years ago. And over time, as we get scale and we're able to get better at what we do, I think we'll be able to pass on more of these savings to our customers, helping us have a much higher penetration rate within a specific city.
Yen Road Business University.
Yes, thank you for your presentation. I was just wondering, you were making a lot of investments in the beginning, starting your company. What do you expect to be an average payback time of a greenhouse in the future, say 3 or 4 years?
We look at it a little more on an engine perspective. I think the greenhouses on a standalone basis, from a farming perspective, I think they're profitable in their first year, and we're looking at a payback of 4 to 5 years, depending on what we're building. We're looking to build a farm today that grows mostly greens, and the payback is a lot sooner than that. Where if you built a tomato farm, which is might not necessarily yield as much on a per square foot basis, the yield will be a lot longer. But that's fine because we look at the overall picture and we look at the engine itself, and we're forecasting that an engine would have a payback of anywhere from 3 to 5 years, depending on the city that it's being built in.
University of South Carolina.
I'd also like to thank you for being here today. It was a wonderful presentation. We noticed when we looked over into the case, the second farm has better pest control, it says in the case, than your previous use of pest control. And so we were just wondering what sort of new pest control the second farm had, and if you are going to use this as a standard when you move on into other farms. Thank you.
Lauren, did you catch So he was asking about Laval versus a Hunsik in terms of pest control. What additional measures there are at Laval that help with pest control? Yep. Sorry, just a second.
Hear me?
Yep, go ahead.
Cool. I don't know how much you heard about the structure of the Laval site, but it's a closed greenhouse. It's an overpressure greenhouse. So the reason we have theoretically better pest control, though we have more pest problems there right now, is because there's a higher pressure inside the greenhouse than outside. It also allows us to have more light entry into the greenhouse because we have fewer structures up top. There's very few roof vents because the air is coming in through the side of the greenhouse via fans. So the additional measures there are higher pressure inside due to this fan ventilation system, and then we also any entry points into the greenhouse are insect. Unlike here, it's open to the outside. Yeah.
What I would just add to that is, I think you asked if this would be the standard. It definitely is. I think when we built our first farm, we looked at we looked at a kit that was available fairly easily. But when we wanted to build our second farm, we went out and we researched the best greenhouses available, and positive pressure, what Lauren was describing, is definitely the way to go for the future.
University of Cape Town.
Thank you. We were just wondering, in terms of connecting with new subscribers, what have you found to be the most effective component of your marketing and communications mix to date?
No pun intended, but a lot of the subscriber growth to date has been organic. So we introduced our first customer referral program early last year, I believe. And we saw about 30% of our subscriber growth last year was just word of mouth through that referral program. In addition, we do some online advertising. The greenhouse is an integral component, not only from a production perspective, but also from a marketing perspective. It allows us to get a much lower CPA than standard e-commerce, which typically tends to have a higher than $100 CPA. So that's definitely a really, really key component, doing events, bringing people to the greenhouse, and word of mouth, and then some kind of low-cost CPC or CPM online advertising.
University of Minnesota.
Hi, thank you very much. We were wondering if you could give us insights into your thoughts on staffing at a new site, so whether you would be looking at traveling or you'd be looking to hire mostly people on that new location. Thank you.
Sure. Lauren, so the question was about staffing at a new site. So when we set up a new site, are we looking to travel? Are we looking to just hire people locally? What would that look like?
So all the baseline staff for the labor in the greenhouses would be local, of course, and to set up and manage the farms, the idea is to have a centralized team that's deployed at each site. We kind of did a test run of this with our second site. So we have a central team that manages everything within a city at least, but can set up sites in a well. And then most farms can be managed remotely. The idea being you have a couple people that do some of the on the ground stuff, but all the data comes back to our central team, who does all the growing decisions and manages settings and things like that.
Paderborn University.
Hi guys, thank you for the presentation. 70% of your revenue comes from the retail products you sell. So have you been thinking about vertical integration or making these products yourself, part of it?
We have a very complicated business as is. I think the prospects of doing more we think about it all the time, but we feel as if our role as understanding growing fresh products is probably the limits of what we want to be doing ourselves from a production perspective. We're not bakers, we're not meat processors, and we'd rather leave those to the experts. But what's interesting is we're collocating more and more people in the same building. So eventually, we see a time where we have a rooftop farm, and just underneath the rooftop farm, we have a baker, we have a commercial kitchen, we have a pasta maker, we have a juice maker right there on the spot. And maybe in the basement, we're growing mushrooms. Still working with local experts, but doing it at a location that's a lot more convenient and a lot more direct.
Universität Münster.
Thank you for your presentation, but we are passing.
Porto Business School.
Congratulations for your presentation. I would like to ask you if you could explain the reason behind the hypothetical expansion project, the financial forecast that you present in terms of income statement and cash flow statement.
Sorry, could you repeat?
Can you explain the reasoning behind the projections of the forecast income statement and cash flow statement for a project?
Sure. There's a note at the bottom, I believe, of that page that explains, essentially it's a multi-stage. We kind of did the hypothetical expansion scenario on the basis of what we did in Montreal, which is that we launched a first farm. We gathered up a subscriber base around that. Once that started to hit capacity, we did a second farm, which required capital outlays. I believe it's in year 2 or year 3 there. So that's really kind of the basis for that cash flow statement, is that it's capital in year 0 to set up a warehouse, to set up distribution, trucks, and as well as the first rooftop greenhouse, and then a second capital outlay to set up a second rooftop greenhouse, as well as to do expansion projects for the facilities, such as expanding the warehouse and things like that.
Université de Sherbrooke.
Hi, thank you for being here. I just would like to clarify a point. Do you process some of your vegetables into end products?
We actually do very little of that ourselves, mostly because everything that we grow, we sell at 100%, so there's practically no loss. I think the only exception is at the end of a tomato cycle, we'll have green tomatoes, and we will process them into a relish. But what we're doing is we are working with a commercial kitchen right now that is processing a lot of our partners' number 2 products or waste products. A small example, over the summertime, we got a call from a broccoli grower who said, I have 15,000 pounds of broccoli, and they're gonna, my buyer just dropped the ball, and I'm stuck with them. And we ended up calling our commercial kitchen, and we transformed them into broccoli pickles that we are selling on the marketplace today. We really take a zero waste policy, and we try to apply it obviously for our own production, but also to help our farms become more efficient by using their not very pretty vegetables, is what we call them.
University of Windsor.
Hello, thank you for the presentation today. I guess we're just going to ask briefly about some of the cities you've considered so far. Have you made initial research into any of them?
Since the launch of the project, we've been looking at other cities. We've looked at Toronto, we've looked at Ottawa, Boston, New York, and Chicago. I think one thing we've learned is we're too small of a team, and running Montreal and focusing on expanding it is a challenge from a resource perspective and from a specialization perspective. But these are really the cities that we have looked at. We've received inquiries from many other cities. I think we've received inquiries from over 30 different cities, very credible inquiries. But we haven't really pursued the effort. We haven't put the effort to go out and research the zoning, the legal, the logistics for each one.
Brock University.
Hi, thank you for your presentation. Actually, every person has already asked the questions that we wanted to ask, so thank you for answering.
Université Laval.
Just raise your hand, okay? 'Cause I can't see you. Sorry. I thank you for the presentation, but we'll pass.
Team Global.
Hi, thank you for your presentation. We were hoping you could tell us a little bit about your production and how you decide what to produce and how much of it to produce.
Sure. Do you want to let Lauren?
Yeah. Lauren, you want to go ahead?
Can you hear me?
Yep. Yeah. What to
Okay.
produce and how much to produce.
I got it. Cool. So we grow all the kind of staple greenhouse crops that produce that are high yielding. So the first decision is yield for sure, and variety. So we have to have all the things we can grow in a greenhouse successfully. So we're growing the high yielding crops are cucumber, pepper, tomato, eggplant, and greens, of course, mostly lettuce and chard. And then microgreens. So the goal being a relatively complete offering from what we can grow successfully in the greenhouse in terms of greenhouse varieties. And then we also incorporate specialty crops because we're a direct-to-consumer customer. We have that direct link, and that's part of our appeal is not only the rooftop farming, but the heirloom tomatoes and the neat, unique things that may not be as high yielding, but are high value to our customers and offer a means of retaining and acquiring customers. So heirloom tomatoes are a key component as well, but mostly staple crops.
And what I'd add, what I'd add to that is we adjust our production based on the consumer's feedback. And I think when we first launched the project, we had 3 rows of eggplants, and we realized actually we can sell all the eggplants that we produce. So we ended up switching to only 1 row of eggplants, and over time we ended up going back up to 4 rows of eggplants as people got into the habit of ordering eggplants. So we have to always adjust it, but typically we haven't seen any major problems since the start. I think outside of eggplants, we have overgrown hot peppers, but we've adjusted that as well.
Lund University.
Thank you very much for the presentation. I had a question. How is your ownership structure looks like as of today? And also, how long does it take for the crop yields?
Sure. So the first question is about the ownership structure, and the second one? Okay. And fair enough. So right now the company, we have about a dozen investors in the company, but it's owned and controlled by the founders. So myself, Lauren, and the founding team. And I think as we grow Lufa, we want to look at ways where we can maintain control of the company, mostly because it's a long-term play. We sometimes think of it as a multi-generational project. So we're looking for investment that will be not very dilutive or non-dilutive at all as we expand Lufa.
Concordia University.
Thank you for coming. We understand you have some extremely aggressive expansion targets. We're kind of curious if you could discuss as to what financial resources you currently have available. How much money would you be able to invest maybe this year or in the next few years?
We would certainly be looking at really raising new funds for any kind of investment. I think outside of internally, growing the corporate team, the plant science team, the CapEx requirements of new farms and new engines are too high to be satisfied with the operations in Montreal. So if we're looking to build in a new city or set up an engine in a new city, we will certainly be looking at new funds to finance it.
Xiamen University.
Thanks for your presentation. My question is less, in your 5 years income statement, your 22 million revenue is only for Montreal region or already include North American region's penetration plan? Thanks.
That hypothetical revenue figure was on the basis of if we just started from scratch, with the knowledge we had right now, and we wanted to set up shop in a new city, that would be just that city as a dedicated operation.
Ben Gurion University.
Thank you for your presentation. My question is about the cities that you cited previously. Are there any other barriers in order to enter in those cities legally and financially on all other aspects?
There's a lot of barriers in every project, every city, none of which are major. I think the bigger issue is the fact that there's so many of them. I think in a city we might have to get approval from up to a dozen different agencies, from the fire marshals to the insurance folks to the transportation department, to be able to do what we want to be doing. But because it's a project that's truly green and sustainable, we've found that they're usually very open to helping us maneuver through these challenges. So outside of what James highlighted, I think these are really the major challenges. We don't see anything else. I think time is the other one that I would add. It does take time to establish a city and to go through all these departments and get the right approvals.
University of Pittsburgh.
Thank you for your presentation. I just wanted to know what is the heating or the electricity mechanism that you are using right now. Are you buying everything for the electricity? Thank you.
Yes, so the electricity comes from Hydro-Quebec, which is the local provider of power, mostly hydroelectric power. And our heating comes from natural gas, which is provided by a local company as well. There are potentials of working with the building to synchronize the heating and the cooling with the building. I think there's a lot of synergies between the greenhouse and the building. I'll give you a small example. In the wintertime, when it's minus 20 degrees outside Celsius and it's sunny, our greenhouse actually overheats, and we need to open up our vents to let some cold air in. So there are opportunities during those times, for example, to store that extra heat and use it to heat the building during the nighttime or during the day. There's also opportunities to use the building as a massive heat storage and explore ways of becoming better, to create a better symbiotic fit between the building and the greenhouse. But today, we are independent, and they run as independent entities using the utilities that are available for us in the city.
Last but not least, the American University in Cairo.
Thank you for your presentation. I would like to ask, if you find a suitable place for a plant, how long does it take for the construction process from scratch to full production? And what's the labor size force per square feet to reach this?
Sure. So if we found our ideal building and we have a lease for that building, from that point on to when we first harvest, it's about a year. About a year, the latest would be a year and a half, mostly because by the time we have found the lease, we have signed the lease, we have started the process with the city and we've advanced it quite a bit. Typically, if I look at Lauren's team, I think about 4 to 5 people per acre would be the number of employees needed per site or per acre. Our sites right now are roughly about 1 acre, even though they might get bigger as things progress. Bigger is better because it's more efficient and you're able to produce more and reduce your costs on a per square foot basis. Thanks, Lauren.
So
So we'll now ask everyone to remain seated. I would just like to announce that at 4:30, for everyone who's interested after your presentations, we will be holding a debriefing with the company presenters here for the students and the coaches. I would like now to announce for Wave 1 students to stand up.
No, sorry, everyone stay seated, actually.
You gotta read all that. You wanna do it? Okay, sure. Okay, announcement. Teams will exit, then the judges, then the public. So Wave 1 teams, please, team hosts will come and find you to escort you outside. You may bring your background materials and any notes for your preparation. Judges, please remain seated until the lead volunteers come and find you and escort you outside.